to talk about the most interesting topic today, telling a different story. So please give Cece a round.
Yeah, an obsessed Bruce Springsteen fan. You gotta get that part right. Yeah. All right, well, let's all just take a good cleansing breath. So a couple of things. I do have just 2 books today, but if you're interested, I can certainly hook you up with a copy of my book, The Confusion Experiment, which was an experiment in which I meditated for an hour every day for 100 days to see if it could heal my confusion, and it did, but it did a lot more than that, and it's a really powerful journey from the head to the heart. So,
it's a great book.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So a couple of suggestions for your experience today. Number 1, breathe, because sometimes things come up when we come to places like this, and that's why we're here, really, is for everything that's stored and stuck inside of us that's no longer serving us. We want it to come up. We want it to be released. So if you're having that experience today, you're in a safe place. Don't push it down. Just let it come up, even if there are tears. It's absolutely appropriate. The second thing is I want to encourage you to let go of all expectations of what you think I'm going to say, what you think you need me to say, and just be present for whatever comes through me, because I'm certainly excited to see what I've let go of any and all expectations. That is for sure. Yeah. So it's time for a new story.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? We all know this. That's why we're here. And I come to you this morning as you. I come to you this morning in the laboratory of life with you. I'm walking this path with you. I am in no way, shape, or form a master or even experienced in any of the things I'm going to share with you. This is what I'm finding to be true now as it relates to building a new story, telling a new story, and reimagining our lives. The last time I was here, I talked about the new design for living, which I still am quite passionate about, and some of that will be in here, but we can see clearly everything is falling away, and it's supposed to. Everything is crumbling, and it's supposed to. That's what happens when something new is seeking to emerge. Nothing is escaping this. So continue to be mindful of your surprise, because surprise keeps us distant from reality. Everything that's happening is exactly as it's supposed to be. And how do we know that? Because it's happening. Okay? Just that simple. So one of the inspiring ideas behind coming and talking about this new story is I had a story about the gym. And my story was, I don't go to the gym. I don't do the gym. I don't like the gym. I'm not a gym person, all right? And that's been my story for a really long time. Oh, I'll mountain bike. I'll do racquetball, but I have very specific ideas and limitations about the gym. So when I got back east in November, I was realizing that my body needed some love and attention. And that story came up. I don't do the gym. But I was in a more open place about changing my story at the time, and I still am. And so I thought, well, that's not working anymore. Let's be open to maybe going to the gym. So I went over to Planet Fitness, which is a wonderful place. The price is perfect. The environment matches what I'm about. And now I have a new story. Now I am a gym person. Now I am loving the gym. I go to the gym. And as a result of that, watch out. Right? So it can just be that simple. And maybe some of you are here just because you have an area of your life that you are seeking to rebuild. Maybe this friendship, this job, this relationship, this place where I live. Some of us, it's a whole remodel. And that's certainly what's going on for me. Every room in the house is being rebuilt and redesigned. So wherever you are, I really respect your willingness to rebuild, because that's certainly one of the tools that's required. The first thing you have to do to tell a new story is be willing. And you might not be. You might be hearing right now, why are we here? Where's the door? I'm not willing to change anything. And that's totally okay. And I would just encourage you to breathe with that limitation, because that's coming from your mind, right? The mind loves what's familiar. It doesn't really like change because it can't track it. The mind uses the past as a reference point. Yeah, this might not be, as great as we want it, but at least we know it. If your mind is saying things like that, be mindful, because it would prefer to keep you small and safe and enclosed in what it knows and can talk about than step out into something new that has no past as a reference point. That's the beauty of new. There's no past. That's why the heart always gets very excited about what's new, because it knows that it's always going to be greater than what was. Of course, the mind has a different story. So you have to be willing. And if you're willing, terrific. If you're not, you're just not ready. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not bad. You're just not ready. I try to go as fast as the slowest part of me, out of respect to myself. In the old design model, we pushed through no matter what. And as a result, we got exhausted and we ran on fumes as if that was a normal thing to do. But that was the agreed upon expectation. Just keep going, or serve others beyond your own self. That was another old way of living. Those things just don't work anymore. So if you're not ready, or you can only go at a certain pace, then just honor that, because that's where you are and you're the one that's doing the rebuild, right? The other thing that's necessary in the early stages, and these things can overlap, they can happen again down the road, so to speak. It's not a very this way, then this way, then this way kind of thing, at least not in my experience. You have to clean up the debris from the life that is no longer. You have to clean up the debris. It could be a mess. It could just be dust from the ruins of what has imploded, or what has fallen away, or what isn't any longer. But if you think about a house, right, what's the first thing we do? We clean it. We sweep the floor. Like, before you can do any remodel, before you can even consider what materials you may need, you have to clean up what was. And so I'm hopeful that whether it's a small area of your life or the whole area of your life, that you're thinking about that as we talk today and seeing what might be true about each of these points that I'm sharing with you. One of the things that's necessary to do this cleanup is endings. In the old design model, I wasn't taught how to do endings. I always use this example. In the old design model, I was taught, if the toaster is broken, plug it in again. I'm sure we can get one more run out of it, right? I didn't learn how to end things. In the new design model, we are willing to see endings as appropriate, as necessary, as healthy. And so in order to begin again or to rebuild, we have to be able to look at what's ending and bring conscious gratitude to it. If you're involved in another person and you're lucky enough to have that person be involved in the ending, that's great. But sometimes that's not the case. So whatever ending has your attention right now, we have a lot of resistance because the mind is afraid of what will be next because it doesn't know it, right? So it keeps us stuck in things. It keeps me stuck in things. However, if you're willing today to engage in healthy endings, I can definitely tell you that based on my experience, it's a real game changer. I'm always seeking to mature. And one of the things that Dawn gives me as a friend is a reference point to the kind of woman I would like to be more like. A more fully conscious and fully mature person that is able to roll with whatever life is, dishing up. So think about what's ending in your life, what's dead on the vine, what you've been going like this to, and try to bring maybe ritual to it. Something that allows you to extract what was good from it, what was beautiful from it, the lessons from it. You get to pull it out of what's ending and then let it go. We're all experiencing some relationship that's ending, whether it's a marriage that's shifting, Friendships, oh my goodness, wow. Like, I've experienced people ending relationships with me, and I'm experiencing, based on inactivity, friendships ending for me, right? It's part of what is happening. The last couple of years has really done a number on humanity. I mean, it's cooking us, but it's what we need in order to evolve to our next level of maturity. Because let's face it, as a collective group of citizens in the world, we've kind of been hanging in adolescence for quite a while. And I believe we're all ready to mature, and one of the ways to mature is to deal with endings in a more proactive and, dare I say, sacred way. Everyone still breathing? Yeah, very good.
If not, there'd be another ending.
So once we clean up and handle some of the endings and identify what area of our lives we're seeking to rebuild or remodel, or the new story we want to tell, we get to look at the building blocks, all right? So to tell a new story, you have to know what the old story is. So you might be saying, well, why? You're just telling us to end it and move on. Well, the great Esther Hicks and her work with Abraham has helped us understand the value of contrast, right? So instead of allowing your mind to separate you from the area of your life or the entirety of your life that doesn't work anymore, as if it's not yours, it's like here, embrace it. Be real with yourself. However that works, piece of paper, a friend, I don't know, whatever your thing is. But identify what isn't working anymore. Like, you already know it. It's not, for most of us, we already know it. It's always going like this, we're just like shoving it all the way on. Hello, this is over. So identify what story no longer works for you. Maybe it's a way that you live. Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's a way that you think about yourself, right? Like for me, the recent headlines, that's certainly what it is. But come on, ladies, like, don't you think it's time that we cut ourselves free from every limiting program that we've bought into that tells us we're less than? I mean, what would happen if every woman everywhere, if every young, old, middle-aged, whatever woman everywhere cut the cords to all the old programming that we've bought into that says we're not allowed to take up space, we're not allowed to be in our full power, and all of those limiting patriarchal programs. If we all focused on that, then we would rise together. And when we rise together, our men are alongside of us, they're supporting us behind us, they're in front of us, and watch out. Then everything will change. So it's just really about what we're going to focus on. I always say a headline is already done. Can't do a whole lot with a headline. But you can make a new story and make a new headline. So that's something to consider. So to tell a new story, you have to know what the old story is and your role in it. Been through some very, very uncomfortable moments of awareness, because sometimes you're in a trance, right? Sometimes the character you're playing and the story that character attracts lulls you into a trance, because the character has a vibrational frequency to it. So if I think that I'm a victim and somebody has done something to me, that means there has to be a perpetrator, right? So how you think about yourself has built in it a whole set of characters, right? Or it could be the other way, where a situation is in your life and won't seemingly leave your life. You can ask yourself, well, what character, what role does this storyline dictate for me that has me trapped, that I'm ready to be free from? So again, this can be big work, this can be small work. It just depends how you're looking at it. But the most important thing is be gentle with yourself, because we're waking up. When you wake up, you're like, oh my gosh, all this time I thought this about myself, and I kept this person in my life because this way of thinking had to have that person in my life, and it had to have this storyline. Every character has people and a storyline. So if you've been in a victim position, the good news is you can liberate yourself, right? The great song by the Eagles. So oftentimes it happens that we live our lives in chains, but we never even know we have the key. You have the key. So if you've been a victim, love yourself, bring compassion to yourself, and decide what you want to be now. And as you focus on that, watch the people who peopled your life when you believed you were a victim fall away. You don't have to even do anything. Just change you and they will fall away. Why? Because they're not in the new story. They're not in the new story. This could happen instantaneously. This could take some time. Apparently we have eternity. And then the last building block, which for me has been super tender and is still taking a little bit of time, but I'll share it with you anyway. Apparently, you have to let go of what didn't happen in order to tell a new story. You have to let go of what hasn't happened to make room for a new dream, a new goal, a new accomplishment, right? And I don't want to spend too much time there because I'm still in a tender spot about it, but suffice to say that, again, ritual is very helpful. Friends are very helpful. This kind of a community is very helpful. Professional support is very helpful. Some of these new modalities like tapping, that help it leave the system versus leave the mind are very valuable. But I would encourage all of us to help each other deal with, grieve, whatever it takes, what hasn't happened, so that we can get present tense with what we want to have happen next. Maybe you still want that thing to happen, but it just needs to be refreshed, reconsidered, come at from a different angle. Maybe it's something that you think you still have to want to do because you've been wanting to do it this whole time and it's still got to happen. Again, is it the mind or the heart that's telling you that? How do you know the difference? Well, for me, the mind is like, oh my gosh. The heart is like, oh, right? It's just a very different and lighter feeling. All right, so those are the building blocks. Next, we have the tools. What does it take to tell a new story? It takes new tools, all right? Some of the tools that I've noticed, I've been asked to get in the toolbox and have handy. Guts. It takes guts. You don't have to tell a new story. You can just live your life. Just pick one reason not to tell a new story, and that's good enough. That's why you have to be really mindful of the mind. If there's anything to put all your attention on, is your mind. What is your mind telling you? What is it presenting to you? What story is your mind keeping you in for all the reasons that a mind does that? Because it takes guts to change your life. It takes guts to change an area of your life. It takes guts to end something that you know in your heart has run its course. That's why most people don't. That's why you're here. Because it takes guts to say, I'm ready for a new story. I'm ready for a new me. But clearly you have the guts because you're here. So that's good. You can check that one off your list. One of my all-time favorite tools is patience. Now this is an interesting one. Because if the 5D, we talk about Dr. Joe Dispenza and all these wonderful people, Esther Hicks, this whole 5D language that we talk about, and the short story about that for me is, in the old program, it was, that's something I want, and I'm here, and I got to go through time and space, I got to work really hard, and then I'm going to get to it, right? And so for me, if I stay in that way of manifesting, I don't feel I'm going to see the things that I'm still imagining and hold in my heart, because that's a very slow way of doing it. But in the new design model, we tend to understand more about the quantum field and this idea that everything is pure energy and it's already done, and we have to act as if it's already done, and it more quickly is brought into our experience. We're going to talk a little bit more about feelings in just a minute. But patience, you plant a seed in the soil, but, you know, the next day you don't necessarily come out and start screaming at the soil, hurry up, where are you? I mean, maybe last year when we were all whacked out, we were doing things like that. But mostly we understand there's a process. You plant the seed, and it takes time for the seed to do its thing, and the law we can't see somehow cracks the seed open, and over time it pulls it through the density of the cold dirt, and then, oh my gosh, there's this little thing that comes out. It takes time. It's a process. Some things you might be able to manifest and handle quickly. Other things take a little bit of time. I mean, clearly humanity is in the chrysalis right now, right? Like, wow, holy smokes. It's really uncomfortable. And it's very crowded because we're all in there trying to, like, come on, give me some room. But there's no room because we're going through massive change. And if you split the cocoon open, well, the butterfly doesn't have the chance to strengthen its wings against that tight space so that it can do its life and fly, right? So the cocoon is a very sacred and important place. If you're living in the field of uncertainty, join the crowd. Like, we're all in uncertainty. Everybody's going, do you know what to do? No, I don't know what to do. Do you have the instructions? I don't have the instructions. What the hell is happening? The good news is we're creating it as we go. That's the beauty of this moment. We are literally creating what is going to happen next, individually and collectively. So be really clear about what you want to experience and stay out of the headlines. Stay out of the news. I can't stress that enough. I mean, do you, but I don't do that anymore. So patience, how about faith? I don't know, faith, what is faith? I have faith in myself. You know, that's what I have faith in. I have faith in myself. Have faith in yourself. Have faith in yourself. You're still here. I think anybody that made it through the last couple of years, you know something about yourself. So have faith in yourself and be willing to come fully back into yourself. You know, find those areas in your life where you've cut yourself off from yourself and you're back at yourself like doing one of this. No more of that. Come home to yourself. Have faith in your ability to change your life, to end something, you know, to reimagine a new way of living. Support. You know, the Adams Center is a beautiful, beautiful community. I mean, look at this wonderful place. You know, if everybody threw $5 in that basket, what a wonderful thing. Because in the new design model, we acknowledge where we're fed. We need community. This whole isolation thing, we don't want to be alone anymore unless that's what we really want to do. So you have community here. You know, we need support. One of the most beautiful things I think anybody can ever say to me is, how can I help? What can I do for you? Like, what a beautiful thing to hear, which is something Dawn said to me when I came into town. It was a rough landing, you know. What can I do to help you? So just recognize we're all in this together. Everybody's going through it. Maybe it's the day that you ask the question. Maybe it's the day you need the question asked to you. But we need support in the new way of living. Confidence goes with faith. Probably the two most important things upon which everything else is built is self-care and self-love. So I grew up in a household where you gave for the other person, even if it emptied you. That was the thing to do. That was the high value, right? You gave to the other people and the other person. But in the new design model, we realize now, wait a minute. If I'm not cared for, I can't offer the world the best of me, right? So self-care, like I said earlier, in the old design model, we would just keep going no matter what, and then we'd collapse. And we never gave ourselves a chance to take care of ourselves. So check in with your self-care. Not from a judgmental place, but from a compassionate place. Are you saying yes when really perhaps you need to say no? Are you willing to say no after saying yes because you realize that puts yourself in a rough position? How's your self-care? Are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough high vibe foods? Are you opening the door and walking out of it and then walking around the neighborhood? Super simple ways to self-care. Are you practicing sitting still even though your mind hates it? Are you doing it anyway for 60 seconds a couple of times a day? 60 seconds. Set your clock for 60 seconds. See? That's what happens. The ding goes off, you go up, and away you go. Practice being still. Practice being okay while the chaos goes in front of you. There's a whole world back there waiting for our attention. Self-love. What's up with this? Self-love, enough. All the old programs keep us separate from ourselves. All I can say is enough. Nobody can love you more than you love yourself, right? The old design model, it was like, oh, if you out here love me enough, then I'll be able to love myself to that level. That hasn't worked. That was a pretty messed up idea that we agreed to. Okay, sure, let's try that for eternity. No. In the new design model, we realize we are the source of love. We have it. But it's been pushed down and covered up by all this, stuff. I'm reading Michael Singer's new book, which is radically changing my life, which I'm grateful for because I'm looking for a new way as well, untethered living. And in such simple language, he reminds me, yeah, right. All those preferences and all the ways we needed life to be and all the stuff that got stuck in us because we didn't understand that it could pass through us and we could let it go. Like, all of that has inhibited our ability to fully love ourselves. I would encourage you to do that as quickly as possible because you're a pretty amazing expression here on this planet, and I would hate for you to leave it and miss the opportunity of loving the one in the mirror. It's pretty awesome. All right, willingness, fearlessness, or feel the fear and do it anyway. One of the greatest books I ever read. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Remember, the mind is where fear is activated because the mind wants to know. Sure, I'll let you go rebuild your life, but first I have to know what's it going to take, how long is it going to take, is it going to be a success, right? That's what the mind needs. But when you're doing something new, you don't have anything except your heart, right? It's like the GPS. I always say, you'll read it in the book. You put the destination in the GPS, but it doesn't tell you all of the directions all at the same time. You'd never get out of the driveway. First you have to make a right. Then it will tell you what to do next. So get in your car, put your destination in, which is going to be your feelings, and trust that your inner compass will tell you what turn to make after you make the turn it just told you to make. That's a good one. Thank you. She's on a roll. And the last part of the tools is failure. There's no such thing as failure. This kind of stuff can really piss you off when you start thinking about the programming we bought into that just has, wah, 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 right? It's like, oh my gosh. And then they say, be happy and live a joyous life. You're like, really? Somebody get this thing off my back. Failure is simply feedback. You're not a failure. Let that go. It's ridiculous. How could you be a failure? You have guts. You're trying something. You're stepping into something new, right? And you can have fun with this. I always say, people say to you, oh, how are you doing today? I have guts. How are you? Right? Practice using this language. They're in a trance anyway, so they're just like, oh, what? You have guts? What? They'll immediately think of salmon probably now, right? But failure is just feedback. Something doesn't work. You're not a failure. It's just feedback. Okay, that didn't work. Right? That's what scientists do all the time. If scientists thought that things that didn't work were their own personal failures, yeah. Okay. Everybody doing good? Yeah. All right, yeah, me too. All right, next up is skill set. After you identify your tools, skill set. Ability to pivot. That kind of goes with the ability to change your mind. If you're rebuilding your life or telling a new story, that means you're staying in the present moment. And it turns out in the present moment, there's always information coming to us, right? That's why you can't be too attached for too long because something is like always right around the corner. So when you're rebuilding your life and failure is just feedback, you will benefit by having the skill set of being able to pivot. That means you were here, you're doing this, something happens, new information came in, now I'm going to go here. Your ability to change your mind. You recognize that in the old design model, oh my gosh, there's a whole talk about decision making, right? You made your bed, now lie in it. Really? But it's very uncomfortable. It doesn't matter, right? That's what we grew up with. Decisions were so heavy duty. Like everything was about making the right decision. So we have a lot of old programming about decisions, and as Michael Singer says in his new book, you know, we're overwhelmed by decision making because we have these inner preferences. Like we're always trying to satisfy the inner psyche, the inner world that we've created or has been created over time. So when you make a decision, it's like, oh my gosh, it's got, yeah. No, just know that you're in the moment, you're fully capable, and you're taking in information as it comes. And when new information comes in and you realize you need to pivot or change your mind, then just do that. Because that's just the way it goes. Even when you use GPS, right? It gives you multiple ways to get to your destination. You pick one, then all of a sudden you're in traffic, and what does it do? It reroutes you, right? So you could stay in the traffic and really get to your destination much later than if you pivoted and took a new route, all right? So think about where you are with your decision making and cut yourself some slack. You know, I always used, when I worked at the restaurant as a server, you know, I used to have to say, you know, tater tots or french fries. And I've said this before, but it's so true. You would think I was saying, you know, buried or cremated. Like, I mean, the amount of time. And I would be like, it's a potato. Either way, you're eating a potato. It's going to be a circle or, you know. But it was such a heavy decision for people, even at that level. What if I don't get the right, you know? It's like, oh my gosh. Just, you know, get a side salad. It'll be all right. Oh my gosh. And on the heels of that laughter, here's the next one. The ability to forgive. Take a deep breath. Let it out. Here's the best lesson I learned about forgiveness by the great Ram Dass. I love you, and I'm not going to play with you. Right? So it's not from a righteous place. It's not from a place of separation. It's simply an understanding that in my old design model, it was loyalty, especially in family. Blood is thicker than water. You have to change. You have to go back in, you know. Well, that doesn't work anymore. Certainly not for me. You know, it doesn't work anymore for me to consciously be in situations or with people with whom it's not a match. It's not a values match. It's not a principles match. It's not a vibrational match. Whatever it is, we know what's not a match, right? So for me, I'm working actively on forgiveness. I love you. I forgive you. You know, I'm not going to play with you. You know, I love you. I forgive you. I can understand how your story caused you to make these choices. However, you don't have access to my most intimate circle anymore. And even now, as I say that, I can hear that old voice that says, well, that's not very nice. Well, I don't want to be a part of that story anymore that sees that like that. I want to be in a new story that says, you know what? That's the cleanest thing you can do for everybody. I love you, and I'm not going to play with you. You know, that's the best I can tell you about forgiveness. And the ability to let go of your old story and the you in it. That's the most important part of that skill set. Who have you been that hasn't been working for you? Forgive yourself, forgive the people that have been in that storyline, and decide next who it is you would like to be. And I'll tell you how to do that now. So we've got building blocks, tools, some skills that are important in your remodel, and design plans, all right? So for me, design plans these days are created with one question. How do I want to feel? I spend and have spent so much time knowing how I feel that I forgot to ask myself, how do you want to feel? Right? So, you know, feelings and we go way back. So for me, I'm always working with my feelings. I'm a very, very sensitive person. Those who are here that are my friends know that I walk around with an open heart. And I'm learning, sometimes I have to not close the heart, because that's not what I want to do, But, if you feel like you're an empath, or, you're picking up the feeling tone of those around you, or, society as a whole, or you can be in a room and you can, you came in feeling this way, but now you're picking up something else, it's important to honor where you are when it comes to how you feel, right? So Kaleem and I are a great example, because Kaleem and I do some spiritual practices every week, and I am a feeler. Not to say Kaleem isn't a feeler. He's not a feeler. But Kaleem, because Kaleem is in his advanced state of consciousness, he has a different relationship with feelings than I do. And what I'm learning from Kaleem and people like Dawn is, get to the neutral place. Get to the neutral place where I'm not necessarily feeling this, and I'm not necessarily feeling this, but I'm feeling this. And when I feel this, then this and this have a better chance of just passing through me than becoming me. We'll see how it goes. I'm a very passionate person. Again, but that's a story, as if my passion would inhibit me from having a more equilibrium with my feelings. But how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel? You mean I have the right to feel a different way than the way I'm feeling? Yes, you do. How do you want to feel? So when you come to your design model, your plans, your blueprints, when it comes to your remodel, use how you're feeling as a reference point to how you want to feel. I'm feeling really unempowered in this relationship. All right, well then that means you want to feel more empowered. Get there first. How do you want to feel? Use how you feel, or how you've been feeling, or how a situation or person makes you feel as a guide to how you want to feel. And then give yourself permission to feel better. That's what I always say on my show, the Camille Conte Show, Sunday night, 6 o'clock on KMBA. It's a pretty awesome combination of this kind of thing with some great music, or you could just find it online, the Camille Conte Show. But that's something I ask myself often these days, because in my personal experience, I'm going through such radical change, and I'm going through such a massive rebuild right now. I mean, I am walking amongst the ruins, you know what I'm saying? Things are still smoldering, right? So you're just like, wow, oh my gosh, like only you know where you're at. Honor that, right? I mean, my experience is I sweep and I vacuum, and the next day it's like, where'd this come from? I just cleaned this place, right? But everything is coming up because I'm asking it to, so that I can be as clean a vessel for my new way of living as possible. It's an interesting experience, but we often get so immersed in how we feel, or we get so wrapped around the axis by what the headlines are telling us, and the feeling of those headlines is already packed into that headline, so we pick up and feel that. Not that it's not appropriate to feel rage or outraged or be enraged these days. That's a very spiritual feeling that gets us out of our chairs. A friend of mine said, oh, my daughter, who's like 19 or something, when she heard about the news, she was crying. Good! I was so happy to hear that. Excellent. That means she gets it. That means she gets it. Something relevant to her life has been significantly taken from her. That's good. I hope young women everywhere are crying, because that means they're waking up. They're waking up for the trance. One of the things that's so fascinating is when you're born into something that's already done, it's just there. It's just normal. You don't know the fight that happened to have that. So all these young women and men who came into something that was already done for them by the people who came before them, now they're realizing, oh, wait a second, this is a baton. There's passing me a baton. I don't just get to live in this without any relationship to it. I have to keep it alive, just like this center. We can come and leave here and say, oh, that's such a great place. But for those of us who are inspired and say, I want to help that place thrive however I can, maybe as a volunteer, maybe as a speaker, whatever it is, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to keep sacred the things that are very meaningful and important to us. But America is definitely telling a new story, and you are all authors in the new story for this country and the world. So wake up to your power is the most important thing I can say today. Wake up to your power. Don't receive these headlines as if you don't have influence. Get out of the headlines, get into yourself, see where you need to tell a new story. Maybe you have to tell a new mental story. Maybe you have to tell a new emotional story. Maybe there's actual physical change that has to happen in your outer world. Just start with whatever's resonating for you this morning and just take the first step, right? We always hear the story about the writer who puts the piece of paper in the typewriter, right? And then just stares at it. Maybe you're just staring at the blank page right now. That's totally fine. Contemplation is a necessary step when you're seeking to tell a new story and rebuild your life. So I'm hopeful that some of this has helped you or given you another piece to your personal puzzle, and I'm happy to take any questions or get any feedback about what I've said and what might be going on for you, or if you've got an area that you feel a little stuck in, maybe you'll be brave enough to share that, and we can see if we can, like those rocks out there, get that crowbar and get that out. Yeah, thank you. Right,
I just would like to comment, when you were talking about the forgiveness
Mhm.
piece, don't you really see that as one of the most important self-love pieces we can bring into our life?
It sounds like you do.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, that
no,
really
I'm honoring
struck
that,
me
for
on
sure.
how deep your love
Absolutely.
is. Self-care, just forgiveness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Maybe we need to change our story about forgiveness. Like maybe the collective story around forgiveness is it's so hard, or if I do that, it means this. Maybe we need to shake off all that old stuff around forgiveness and just, like you're saying, see it as an important gesture to the self-love we're committed to. You know, I guess if you're really committed, if I'm really committed to self-love and self-care, then a lot of these things are gonna maybe happen more quickly and swiftly, because my focus is on this, not on this. Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, and also the crystalline energy that we're
Mhm.
moving into, I don't know about y'all, but don't you think the manifestations are happening extremely quickly now? Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been kind of fascinating to see what's happening and how it's evolving and unfolding, because we are a part of it. You can't be here and not be a part
Right.
of it. It's just like, are you gonna see your part and see
Right.
what you can do?
That's why it's really important to check into how you feel, because feelings have creative juice in them. Your feelings are what really, brings it to you. Sure, your thoughts are a part of it and they are important. But you can have thoughts and affirmations, but for me, if I don't have the juice of the feeling behind it, it's not as powerful. So, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
And so, thank you for your statement about getting out of the headlines and how us habitual humans from who knows when have been trained to look at the headlines and be the habitual humans that we are and embrace all that stuff. It's quite phenomenal that things are moving so fast that the headlines can't even keep up. And so how do you, can you give a viewpoint on getting out of the headlines and what you do with your mind, emotions and feelings when you are habitually bombarded by headlines from everywhere?
Well, I don't have a TV. I don't have a TV. I don't subscribe to any newspapers or websites.
Website,
Yeah, I just don't.
except the Camille Conte show.
Of course. I mean, when the shooting happened in Uvalde, Texas,
Right,
I didn't have to be in the news to hear about that.
right.
And it affected me, appropriately so. And I went right out and requested, that we do some prayer for ourselves and the people involved. So it's not that I'm insensitive to what's going on, but I've turned away. Because that's not my world. It's not that I don't care, I do care. But what can I do about these things? I'd rather put my attention on what I can actually affect. I'd rather make a headline in my own life and in my own community and respond to that and do that. I'd rather be a headline generator than a headline receiver. So for me, it's literally just turning away. I think I will dabble in the headlines, but then immediately I go, oh, that's a 5-inch font in red. That's designed to do specific things to our brain and our emotions. And I just don't want to give myself to that because it does not have my best interest in its heart when it does what it does. So.
And so it's, so you forgive it, like you're talking about, and then after you forgive it, it goes away.
I just turn away. I really don't spend a lot of time in the headlines.
Right.
I don't feel bombarded by it because I've stepped out. You know what I'm saying?
Like in 4 directions, you got another direction.
Yeah, the headlines of my own life have my attention right now.
Right.
And I have to honor my heart's capacity.
Yeah.
My heart right now can't take on some of the horrors that are presented in the headline. I can't do anything about Ukraine. I can't do anything about these things. And if there is something I can do, then I'll know it and then I'll go do that thing. But I won't give myself to the news. Because the news's agenda has changed since Walter Cronkite. It's very, very different today.
And Paul Harvey, the rest of the story.
And the rest of the story was Paul Harvey. Yeah, so, anybody else?
One more,
Yeah.
couple more.
Children, stay in the lines. We were trained, we drive between the lines. We don't step on lines. We're very, very careful about lines. So to pull my head out of the lines is a big field. And thank you for reminding me to pull it out of my lines.
Yeah, and you know what can help?
And that too.
Before the lines, there was the field.
And let's make them curve to start.
You can do whatever you want. You can live in a lineless field, or you can just draw whatever lines you want, or take a big eraser.
Do I have to align with that?
And on that note, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Dawn.
Let's give her a big hand.